Welcome back to Boss Economics World, the only channel that tells it like it is, slicing through the government's economic baloney with the precision of a Wall Street hedge fund manager shorting your grandma's pension fund. I'm your host, the no-nonsense, data-driven, truth-slinging economist you wish ran the Treasury, but hey, they'd never let me near the printing press, because I'd refuse to churn out monopoly money to fund their harebrained schemes. Today, we're diving into the Foxconn AI server plant saga in Mexico, a story dripping with government mismanagement, tariff tantrums, and the kind of economic clownery that makes you wonder if anyone in Washington, or Mexico City, has ever cracked open an econ textbook. Buckle up, folks, this is gonna be a wild ride. Let's start with the headline. Foxconn, the Taiwanese tech titan, is plowing a cool $900 million into a mega AI server plant in Jalisco, Mexico, set to be the world's largest assembly hub for NVIDIA's cutting-edge GB200 AI chips. Construction's wrapping up in a year, with doors swinging open by late 2025 or early 2026. Sounds like a win, right? Jobs, investment, innovation, everything a struggling economy dreams of. But hold your applause, because here comes the punchline. Donald Trump, the tariff-slinging cowboy, is threatening to slap a 25% tax on everything crossing the Mexican border, all in the name of America First. And guess who's caught in the crossfire? Foxconn, Mexico, and, oh yeah, you, the taxpayer, who'll end up footing the bill for this economic circus. Now, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because this isn't just about one factory, it's about the systemic economic mismanagement that's turned global trade into a geopolitical piñata. Governments on both sides of the border are playing a dangerous game of chicken, and the stakes are nothing less than the future of the global tech supply chain. Meanwhile, ordinary folks are left scratching their heads, wondering why their iPhones cost more, their jobs are vanishing, and their governments seem hellbent on tanking the economy faster than you can say, recession. Let's talk tariffs, shall we? Trump's 25% tariff threat isn't just a negotiating tactic, it's a Molotov cocktail lobbed into the heart of North American trade. And don't take my word for it, let's look at the data. According to a 2024 report by the U.S. International Trade Commission, tariffs imposed during Trump's first term, 2018 to 2020, cost American consumers and businesses a staggering $40 billion annually, with over 90% of those costs passed directly on to you, the consumer. That's right, tariffs aren't paid by the evil foreign countries, they're paid by you, in the form of higher prices on everything from electronics to avocados. Now, fast forward to 2024, and Trump's threatening to double down on this economic lunacy. A 25% tariff on Mexican imports would hit Foxconn's AI server plant like a freight train, jacking up the cost of producing those NVIDIA-powered servers. And who's gonna eat those costs? Not Foxconn, they'll just pass them on to the end buyer, meaning tech companies like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft will see their cloud computing costs skyrocket. Guess who gets the final bill? Yep, you guessed it, you, the consumer, paying more for everything from Netflix subscriptions to AI-driven software. But wait, it gets worse. Mexico is the U.S.'s second-largest trading partner, with bilateral trade topping $800 billion in 2023, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Slapping tariffs on Mexican goods doesn't just hurt Mexico, it boomerangs back to the U.S., killing jobs in industries that rely on cross-border supply chains. A 2023 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that Trump's first-term tariffs led to a net loss of 142,000 American jobs, mostly in manufacturing and agriculture. So, tell me, how exactly is this America First? Sounds more like America Last to me. Now, let's hop the border and take a hard look at Mexico's role in this mess. Jalisco Governor Pablo Lemus Navarro is practically rolling out the red carpet for Foxconn, bragging about how investment in the state is surging despite Trump's tariff threats. And hey, I get it, $900 million is a lot of dinero, and the promise of jobs and industrial growth is hard to resist. But here's the kicker, to lure Foxconn, the Mexican government is offering fiscal incentives and greasing the wheels with bureaucratic shortcuts, all while ordinary Mexicans are stuck dealing with crumbling infrastructure, skyrocketing inflation, and a peso that's weaker than a wet paper towel. Let's break this down. According to the World Bank, Mexico's GDP growth has been anemic, averaging just 2% annually over the past decade, well below the global emerging market average of 4.5%. Meanwhile, inflation hit 8.7% in 2022, the highest in 2 decades, and while it's cooled to around 5% in 2024, it's still eating away at ordinary Mexicans' purchasing power. And what's the government doing? Handing out tax breaks and subsidies to foreign multinationals like Foxconn, while public spending on education, healthcare, and infrastructure remains woefully inadequate. A 2023 OECD report ranked Mexico dead last among its 38 member countries in public investment as a share of GDP, at just 1.2%. Compare that to the OECD average of 3.7%, and you start to see the problem. So, while Foxconn gets a sweetheart deal, the average Mexican worker is left holding the bag, working longer hours for wages that buy less and less. And let's not forget the environmental cost. Industrial megaprojects like this often come with lax oversight, leading to pollution, water shortages, and land disputes. Just look at the Tesla Gigafactory in Nuevo Leon, where local communities have protested over water usage in a region already plagued by drought. Is this really the economic development Mexico needs, or is it just another example of government mismanagement selling out the future for a quick buck? Now, let's zoom out even further and look at the global implications, because this Foxconn plant isn't just a Mexican story, it's a microcosm of the chaos gripping the global tech supply chain. The rise of AI has made chips like Nvidia's GB200 the new oil, powering everything from self-driving cars to ChatGPT. But here's the problem, the supply chain for these chips is a geopolitical minefield, thanks to government meddling on both sides of the Pacific. Foxconn's move to Mexico isn't just about cheaper labor, it's a strategic hedge against US-China tensions, which have escalated to the point of economic warfare. The US has slapped export controls on advanced chip technology to China, with the Commerce Department announcing in October 2024 a new round of restrictions targeting firms like Huawei and SMIC. Meanwhile, China's retaliating by hoarding critical minerals like rare earths, which are essential for chip production. And where does Mexico fit into this? It's the US's backdoor, a way to friendshore production away from China while still keeping costs low. But here's the rub, Trump's tariff threats could derail this entire strategy, pushing companies like Foxconn to rethink their investments and potentially move production elsewhere, say, to Vietnam or India, where labor is even cheaper and political risks are lower. A 2024 McKinsey report warned that tariffs and trade disruptions could add up to $1 trillion in annual costs to the global tech supply chain by 2025, with AI and semiconductor industries bearing the brunt. So, while governments play their tariff tit-for-tat, the real losers are the companies trying to innovate, the workers losing jobs, and the consumers paying higher prices. Let's not forget Mexico's grand plan to become a semiconductor powerhouse, courtesy of President Claudia Sheinbaum's Kutsari initiative. Sounds fancy, right? A new design center in Jalisco, investments from Micron and ASE Technology, and dreams of capturing a slice of the $600 billion global semiconductor market. But here's the reality check. Mexico's semiconductor ambitions are a house of cards built on a foundation of government incompetence. First, the skills gap. According to a 2023 report by the Inter-American Development Bank, only 25% of Mexican workers have the technical skills needed for high-tech industries like semiconductors, compared to 45% in South Korea, the global chip leader. Second, the infrastructure gap. Mexico's energy grid is a mess, with blackouts costing businesses $1.2 billion annually, per the Mexican Chamber of Commerce. And third, the funding gap. The US is pouring $52 billion into its CHIPS Act to boost domestic semiconductor production, while China's throwing $150 billion at its chip industry. Mexico's Kutsari initiative? A paltry $1.5 billion, barely enough to build a single advanced fab. So, while Jalisco brags about hosting 70% of Mexico's semiconductor industry, let's be real, this is small potatoes compared to the global heavyweights. And with Trump's tariffs looming, foreign investors might start asking whether Mexico is worth the headache. Just look at BYD, China's EV giant, which hit pause on its Jalisco plant amid US political uncertainty. If Mexico's government thinks it can compete in the global tech race without fixing its fundamentals, it's dreaming, and the rest of us are stuck living the nightmare. So, what's the takeaway from this Foxconn fiasco? It's simple, government mismanagement on both sides of the border is driving the global economy straight into the ditch. Trump's tariff tantrums are a masterclass in economic self-sabotage, while Mexico's corporate giveaways are a textbook case of putting foreign profits over public good. And caught in the middle are ordinary folks, workers, consumers, and small businesses, who are paying the price for this parade of incompetence. Here's the kicker, this isn't just about Foxconn or tariffs or semiconductors. It's about a broader failure of leadership, a refusal to prioritize long-term growth over short-term political wins. The US could be leading the world in AI and tech innovation, but instead, it's busy shooting itself in the foot with protectionist nonsense. Mexico could be lifting millions out of poverty with smart industrial policy, but instead, it's selling out to the highest bidder. And the rest of us? We're left holding the bag, wondering when the adults will finally show up to the room. That's all for today, folks, but don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because if you think this economic clown show is bad, just wait till we dive into the Fed's latest rate hike debacle next week. Until then, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, in a world of government mismanagement, the only boss you can trust is Boss Economics World.